Hi, my friends. Today I want to present you a new story. Enjoy watching it.
Andrew sat across from me, his posture rigid, and the once familiar warmth in his eyes replaced by a cold detachment. The dining table between us seemed like an impenetrable barrier, filled with unspoken tensions. The late afternoon sunlight filtered through the curtains, casting a gentle glow, but it did nothing to ease the heaviness of the moment. "Mom," he began, his voice lacking its usual warmth, "there's something we need to discuss about the wedding." His words felt like a knife twisting in my chest. I had been dreading this conversation, yet hoping for a different outcome. "What's going on, Andrew?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady and composed. The silence stretched between us, filled with unspoken fears and anxieties. I glanced at the empty chairs around the table, memories of family dinners now tainted by this painful reality. He shifted uncomfortably in his chair, his eyes darting away. "Verity's family, they've raised concerns. They don't think you fit in with their social circle. They've asked me to not invite you." His gaze met mine briefly before he looked away again. I felt as though the ground had been pulled out from under me. "Not invite me? Are you saying I'm not welcome at my own son's wedding?" The words felt foreign and cruel, as if they belonged to a nightmare I couldn't escape. He nodded, his face a mix of regret and resignation. "It's not just about you. They have certain expectations for the wedding, and they're worried about how you might be perceived." His tone was clipped, devoid of the compassion I needed. I fought back tears, my heart aching. "So, my role as your mother means nothing? I've sacrificed so much for you, and now I'm being pushed aside." My voice cracked, betraying the depth of my hurt. I felt the sting of his words, a painful reminder of the widening chasm between us. Andrew's expression hardened. "It's not about that, Mom. It's about fitting in with their standards and maintaining a certain image." His words seemed to dismiss my pain, reinforcing the divide that had been growing. I could barely process his words. The rejection wasn't just about the wedding. It was a painful commentary on who I was and the life I had lived. I nodded numbly, feeling the sting of his words and the loss of the future I had imagined with him. The room felt colder, the warmth of our past replaced by the chilling reality of his new life. As he stood to leave, he avoided my eyes. "I'm sorry," he muttered, but the words seemed hollow. The finality in his tone left me reeling. I watched him walk away, the sound of the door closing behind him echoing like a final goodbye. The room, once filled with hope and love, now seemed empty and alien, reflecting the painful void left by his departure. I sank into the chair, staring at the empty space where he had been. The silence of the room was deafening, filled with the echoes of our past conversations and laughter. The house, once a haven of warmth and love, now felt like a cold, distant reminder of what had been lost. The subtle changes in Andrew's behavior became more apparent over time. At first, it was the little things, shorter visits, curt responses, and a growing discomfort in his interactions with me. But soon, these minor shifts transformed into a chasm of distance, widening with every encounter. One evening, as I prepared a modest dinner, Andrew's voice broke through my thoughts. "Mom, don't you think it's time to update the place a bit? I mean, look around. It's pretty outdated." He glanced around the room with a critical eye, as if my home were a relic of the past. I tried to maintain my composure. "I'm content here. This home has been a sanctuary for us, and it suits me just fine." I could feel the hurt beneath his casual tone, a subtle condemnation of everything I had built. Andrew's eyes carried a critical edge. "Verity's family is used to a higher standard. Maybe a little modernization wouldn't hurt. It might make a difference." His words were casual, but they struck me deeply, a reflection of how far we had drifted apart. Over the following weeks, Andrew's visits became even less frequent. Our conversations, once filled with shared memories and laughter, now felt strained and superficial. Each comment, each critical glance, was like a small dagger to my heart, creating a distance I could barely bridge. One afternoon, I received a call from Andrew, his voice clipped and formal. "Mom, I'm going to be late for dinner. Verity and I have a meeting with her parents." The sudden coldness in his tone stung more than the late hours he worked. I could hear the faint sound of laughter and chatter in the background, a stark contrast to the loneliness of my home. As I hung up, I couldn't shake the feeling of being pushed to the periphery of his life. The warmth and closeness we once shared seemed like distant memories, overshadowed by the new, glamorous world Andrew was now part of. I found myself clinging to the hope that things might change, but each passing day only seemed to widen the gap between us. In the evenings, I would sit by the window, watching the world outside move on without me. The neighbors' laughter, the distant hum of traffic, everything seemed to emphasize the growing isolation I felt. I tried to fill the emptiness with activities and hobbies, but nothing could replace the connection I once had with my son. The decision to cancel the wedding venue was a painful one, but it felt like a necessary act of reclaiming my dignity. I felt a deep sense of betrayal and wanted to make a statement about my worth and the sacrifices I had made. My heart ached with every keystroke as I composed the letter to Andrew, trying to articulate my feelings of hurt and rejection. I sat down to write a letter to Andrew. My hands trembled as I crafted each word, expressing the profound hurt I felt and detailing my role in securing the wedding venue. I wanted him to understand that my involvement was not just a gesture, but a significant sacrifice made out of love for him. The letter was a mix of raw emotion and clear facts, a testament to the love and effort I had invested in his happiness. Once the letter was completed, I dialed Janice, the owner of the wedding venue. Her voice, though warm, carried a note of concern. "Hello, Rosalie. What can I do for you?" Her tone was gentle, but there was an edge of apprehension. "Janice," I said, my voice steady but resolute, "I need you to cancel the booking for the wedding." I could almost hear her surprise over the phone, but I was firm in my decision. There was a brief silence. "Are you certain? It's a big decision." Her words were cautious, but my resolve was unwavering. I felt that this was the only way to assert my own worth and dignity. "Yes," I replied firmly. "If they don't want me there, then they shouldn't have the venue. It's a matter of principle." The finality in my voice left no room for doubt. Janice sighed. "I understand. I'll handle it." The call ended, and I felt a mix of emotions, anger, sadness, and a strange sense of empowerment. I knew this action would only deepen the rift with Andrew, but I believed it was necessary to assert my own worth and dignity. As I sat in the silence of my home, the weight of my decision settled heavily on my shoulders. I knew this was more than just a cancellation. It was a symbol of the deep pain and frustration I felt. I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself, knowing that this choice would have lasting consequences on my relationship with Andrew. In the quiet aftermath, I found myself reflecting on the choices that had led to this moment. The sacrifices, the dreams, and the love I had poured into raising Andrew all seemed to crystallize into this one painful act of defiance. The emptiness of the house mirrored the hollowness I felt inside, and I wondered if there would ever be a way to bridge the chasm that had opened between us. I watched the sun dip behind the hills, casting a golden hue over the small town. My fingers drummed lightly on the kitchen table as I tried to steady my thoughts. The phone call with Janice had been brief but decisive. There was no turning back now. The wedding venue had been cancelled. A part of me felt guilty for taking such drastic action, but another part of me, the part that had been dismissed and disrespected, felt vindicated. The quiet of the house was interrupted by a sharp knock on the door. My heart raced, knowing exactly who it would be. I opened the door, and there stood Andrew, his face a mask of frustration. "Mom, what did you do?" he asked, his voice low but trembling with anger. I stepped aside to let him in, but he barely moved, standing just inside the doorframe. "I cancelled the venue, Andrew. I said calmly, though my hands shook slightly at my sides. The wedding won't be happening there. His eyes widened in shock. You canceled it? Why? Do you have any idea what you've done? He was pacing now, running his hands through his hair in agitation. I know exactly what I've done, I replied, trying to remain steady. You didn't want me at your wedding. You didn't want me involved. So, I made sure I wasn't. Mom, this is insane. He stopped pacing and looked at me with a mixture of disbelief and anger. Verity's family is going to lose their minds. You can't just... He paused, struggling to find the words. This is supposed to be about me and Verity, not you. And yet, you made it about how I don't belong. I shot back, the pain evident in my voice. You told me I wasn't welcome because I didn't fit in with her family's lifestyle. What was I supposed to do, Andrew? Just sit back and accept that. Andrew sighed heavily, rubbing his temples as if trying to make sense of it all. I never thought you'd go this far. You're ruining everything over some hurt feelings. I felt a pang in my chest at his words, but I refused to waver. I'm not ruining anything, Andrew. I'm standing up for myself. If you don't think I'm good enough to be part of your life, then I won't be. Not in the way you want, anyway. He stood there, silent for a moment, clearly trying to contain his frustration. You need to fix this, he finally said, his tone sharp and commanding. Call Richard back. Get the venue reinstated. This is my wedding, Mom. Don't take that away from me. I can't do that, Andrew, I said quietly. I won't. The silence that followed was heavy, the air between us thick with unspoken words. Andrew's face hardened, and for a brief moment, I saw a flash of the boy he used to be, the one who would never have spoken to me this way, the one who loved me without condition. But that boy was gone now, replaced by a man whose loyalty lay with someone else. If you don't fix this, he said, his voice cold, you'll be out of my life for good. Is that what you want? Tears welled up in my eyes, but I blinked them back. If that's the price I have to pay for standing up for myself, then yes, I whispered, my voice breaking just a little. I won't be treated like I don't matter, Andrew. Not by you, not by anyone. The tension in the air was palpable. Andrew's words had barely left his lips when the door swung open again, and there, standing in the doorway, was Verity. Her presence, striking and almost regal, filled the small space of my home with a coldness that matched the winter wind outside. Andrew, what's going on? Verity demanded, her voice clipped and sharp, her eyes narrowing as they flicked between us. She was impeccably dressed, as always, her diamond earrings glinting in the dim light of my modest hallway. Andrew turned to her, exhaling in frustration. Mom canceled the venue. The whole wedding is at risk now. Verity's expression shifted from confusion to fury in an instant. What? She snapped, stepping forward. Rosalie, why would you do something like that? You're ruining everything. I could feel the blood rush to my face, a mix of anger and hurt bubbling to the surface. I looked directly at Verity, meeting her cold gaze. I wasn't invited, Verity. Your family made it very clear I don't belong, so I made sure I wouldn't be a part of it in any way. Verity's lips pursed into a tight line. This isn't about you not being invited. This is about you sabotaging your own son's wedding. Do you have any idea how hard we've worked to make this perfect? I have an idea, yes, I replied, my voice steady despite the hurt coursing through me. I'm the one who secured the venue for you in the first place, but apparently, I'm not good enough to be there when my own son gets married. Andrew shifted uncomfortably beside Verity, his jaw tight. Mom, we could have found a way to fix this, but this is too much. Too much. I repeated, my voice rising. Andrew, you've been drifting away from me ever since you got engaged to Verity. You've criticized my home, my clothes, my life. All because I don't fit into the world you've chosen. Now you expect me to just stand by and watch as I'm pushed further and further out of your life. Verity crossed her arms, clearly unimpressed. We offered you an alternative, Rosalie. We were going to have a small gathering at another time, something more suitable for you. Something more suitable? You mean something less embarrassing for you and your family? My voice was sharp, the words stinging as they left my mouth. Andrew stepped between us, his frustration boiling over. This isn't about them, Mom. This is about you, and how you've let your pride get in the way of everything. Now, we don't have a venue, and the wedding is in jeopardy. I took a deep breath, trying to keep my composure. Maybe this is a lesson for you, Andrew. Maybe you'll realize that family doesn't just mean the people who can afford to throw a big, fancy wedding. Family is the people who stand by you, no matter what. Verity let out a bitter laugh. And what kind of family ruins their own son's big day? I met her gaze, unwavering. The kind that refuses to be disrespected. The kind that won't be treated like they don't matter. The days after Andrew's desperate plea were marked by a tense silence. I spent my time in quiet reflection, weighing my choices against the values I had always upheld. My heart was torn between the fierce love I held for my son and the deep sense of betrayal I felt. The wedding venue, now cancelled, stood as a symbol of my defiance and perhaps my only bargaining chip. One evening, as I sat alone in the dim light of my living room, the doorbell rang. I knew it was Andrew before I even opened the door. His face was a mixture of weariness and determination, a reflection of our shared anguish. "Mom, can we talk?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. I nodded, inviting him inside. We sat across from each other, the weight of unspoken words filling the room. Andrew started, his voice trembling. "I've been thinking a lot about everything. I realized I was wrong. I let Verity's family pressure me into pushing you away, and I'm sorry. I didn't see how my actions were hurting you." I studied him, searching for sincerity in his eyes. "Andrew," I said softly, "it's not just about the wedding. It's about respect and love. You've changed so much since meeting Verity. You've judged our lives as unworthy, and you've forgotten where you came from." Andrew's eyes filled with tears. "I know, Mom. I let their opinions cloud my judgment. I should have stood up for you, not against you. But I need your help. The venue is crucial for the wedding, and Verity's family is insisting on it. They're threatening to cancel the whole event." I took a deep breath, feeling the strain of my own emotions. "I'm willing to help," I said, "but not for the reasons you might think. I want to restore the respect we once had, and that starts with you acknowledging the value of our family over materialistic views." Andrew nodded, his expression earnest. "I understand. I'll speak to Verity and her family. I'll make sure they understand how much this means to me, and to us." The next few days were a whirlwind of negotiations. Andrew's apology was met with a mixture of skepticism and understanding from Verity's family. The venue was reinstated, but not without considerable compromise. The wedding went off without a hitch, but with a notable shift in atmosphere. There was an air of humility and acceptance that hadn't been there before. At the reception, Andrew came to me, his face flushed with emotion. "Thank you, Mom," he said. "I know this isn't enough to undo everything, but I want to make things right. I'm committed to mending our relationship." As the evening drew to a close, I looked around at the faces of the guests, at the celebration that had nearly been lost. I felt a quiet satisfaction. Justice wasn't just about winning the battle. It was about restoring the bond that had been fractured. Andrew and I were not yet whole, but we were on the path to healing. The wedding had tested our limits and revealed our true selves. As I watched Andrew and Verity dance, I saw a flicker of hope for their future, and for ours.